All right, guys, we are back. In the previous video, we downloaded and installed React using this command. So now we're going to follow these instructions right here. And this now brings up React. Now we inspect the files. There's this public folder, and then there's this index.html with this element right here. Now what React does here in the code is it selects that element, creates this element, the React root element, and then it renders your app inside of that. This could be really any component of your choice. We'll go over some of the basics right now. All right, so right now we don't need this. We're gonna get rid of that. And then here we can delete all this. And app.cs, we don't need that. And then here we can pretty much take our styles here, put them in there. And then this is just a component called app, which React takes and inserts it here, and it's what you see here. This can be whatever you want it to be, but usually your app has a component like this where everything gets inserted to, and then it just displays on here, and then depending on what the user does, a different thing displays and whatnot. All right, so let's go ahead and pretty much take all of this right here and put it in here. Just fix some of this alignment. Okay. And then in React, you have to always close your elements. So we're doing that now. And then they also don't like the word class. So these have to be class name. And as you can see, it looks pretty much the exact same as the regular JavaScript one. Now we're going to create some real basic and simple components. We'll call this one mycontent.js. We'll call this one mylist.js. We're going to import use state. We'll go over a lot of these things later on in other videos, what they are, how to use them, etc., etc. We're going to need this one here. We're going to need this one here. All right. Now we're pretty much going to take that one and do it here. But first, this is usually how you make a component. Define some state. We'll just call it visible, set visible, use state, and we'll just leave it as true for now. Define our event handler, handle click. Apologize for my misspellings. And we will toggle that. All right, so now we're going to define the actual HTML, which is pretty much this right here. Pretty much copy paste it. Oops. And this is fine. P class content. Oops. I'm going to put that there. And then for the class, we're going to say if it's visible, the class will be nothing. Otherwise, it will be hidden. And then for this, we're going to do props.children. And the way those children work is like this. I'll show you. So right here, as you can see, I'm using my custom component and I'm putting this content here, and then it takes those props, this property called children, and then it just displays whatever is in there. These curly braces is just can be any type of JavaScript expression. All this will be explained in a series of videos, but for now let's just keep it simple. All right, now we're going to do this here. And all right, we will pass in the event handler, right? And we also need to change this to be, if it's visible, show hide, otherwise show that. So as you can see, that's already working off the bat. So what happens here is whenever the user clicks this, it triggers this event handler. This event handler sets some state, and then the component re-renders and it takes in the new state, which in this case could be either true or false. This reads it and displays the right thing. As I mentioned, in React, you describe the different states of your UI, and you trigger state, and that's how you switch between your states. All right, so we did our first component. Now let's go ahead and do our next component, which will be my list. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at what that one looks like. Okay, so you have all this. Let's start off by writing the function. My list. We'll define some state. Now we're going to define like some default data so that something actually shows for now. So we'll just do one. And then we'll put that here. combine those. We're going to make our first event handler. We'll just call it that for now. And then we will do that. Now we're going to define the HTML. So you can pretty much copy this right here. Kind of. You'll see. We'll just use this as our, oh, that's the wrong HTML. So it'll be this right here. And, oops. Right. Fix some alignment. Right. And our event handler. And we'll pass in that one there. Right. And then this button. We will, all right, for this, what we have to do is we have to loop over these list items. Oops. And render them. So, use some destructuring like this, and then we will return a list item like that. And then get rid of this. We're going to import our component. And we're going to render it right here. And as you can see, it's rendering. But this does not work. So we need to make that work. So we're going to write our event handler for that. And we're going to add it here. Handle add item. But yeah, this is basically how you add your event handlers in React. So first thing we need to do is get all the item IDs. And I'll explain why. The reason for this is we need to get the next available item ID or the next max ID. So in our dummy data, it's 0, 1, and 2. So the next one would be 3. So we want to dynamically generate a new item ID just for this example. All right, so I'm going to use some JavaScript here. This will help us get the max item ID. And then ID will just be +1. So the max is 2, so the next item ID will be 3, and so on and so forth whenever this function is called. All right. Now we're going to define our new item. ID is equal to next item ID, and then text is equal to list item input. So this will get the next ID. This will read from here. This stores the value here whenever you type in something here. And then to add an item the same way that this one was doing, like this, in React, you have to set state. All right, so to do that, we go here, and then we take in the already existing list items, and then we merge onto it our new item as well, like that. So let's test this out. So it works. One thing we forgot was to clear the input here the same way the other one did there. So we'll do set list item input to an empty string. All right, so let's try that again. Perfect. All right, so you set some state. That triggers a re-render. React reads the new state, and it just renders the updated state. All right, so now the last thing we need to code is this form thing. Right now this does nothing. We're just going to leave this one here. One thing we do need is we need this function, and we need to paste that into here. We'll just put it here for now. Oops. Yep. That looks fine. And now we need to come up with some state. Get rid of this since we don't need it. Oops. All right, and then our first piece of state will be the input. Which will be whatever the user put in here. Our second piece of state will be status. And then our next piece of state will be a response. And then our next piece of state will be an error. If there's an error, right now there is no error. Now let's go ahead and align all of these. All right. So now we are going to start writing out our code. We need to modify this HTML a little bit. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to make some stubs for now. Our first one will be, make this a little smaller, will be handle submit. For now, we're just going to do prevent default, do on submit, handle submit. And now, let's see what else do we need to modify. This is fine. This one needs an event handler. And the input will be guest input. Right, and then on change, we will make a function called handle guess input. Right, and then we're gonna put that up here. Do some destructuring. And then we're gonna set the value or whatever was typed in. And then we need to, I think these are the only two event handlers that we need. All right, that one looks fine. And then for our response div, we need to make a little bit of changes. It's going to be null for now. If error response class will equal if response oops. So yeah, if there's an error, the response class is error. If the response is right answer, then response class is success. Just for this basic example, usually you would refactor this code and do it a different way, but we're just doing a real simple example just for demonstration. All right, so now I'm going to come over here. And we are going to change this to be something like this. Oops. Right, and then we'll just display whatever response was set. All right, let's modify this one too. And we are going to disable these inputs when the user, when the request is going on or undergoing or it's fetching. So we're going to do disabled is equal to status. And we're going to copy that and put that here. So if the status is fetching, the input will be disabled. If it's whatever else, it won't be disabled. All right, so now let's go ahead and code our handle submit. So let's set the status first. Fetching, set error, because we need to reset these. Set response. This will be fetching answer, and then we will actually make the request, and we will use guess input. And just call this res for now to not confuse it with response up there. And then set response to res. And then if there's an error, we are going to set response to res dot message, and we're going to set error to true. And then finally we're just going to set the status to typing. Now let's go ahead and give this a try. So we'll just do like bar. And voila, it works. Give it a right answer. Boom. So yeah, basically that's how React works. You describe your UI, which is me doing that right here. You're saying this will be disabled only if the status is fetching, otherwise it won't be disabled. And then here you're just saying, okay, if there's an error, the response class is error, which points us back to this class right here. If the response class is right answer, then the class is success. And you can kind of see the difference between doing it in regular JavaScript and doing it in React. You just describe your UI, the different states that it can be in, like this, and then you just trigger some state change, and then your UI will update, displaying the new state. To give you another little example, we could also, instead of doing this, you could do something like, let's just comment this out for now. You could do like another way to render something. You could do visible and p So what this will do is it says if it's visible, and it'll just render. If it's false, it won't even get this far. So that's another way to render an element without using classes. But yeah, that's pretty much it. If you guys like this video, go ahead and hit the subscribe and like buttons, and tell me what else you would like to see. Thanks for watching. Ciao.